The morning sun rose over New Haven like it had for the past 15 years. The light painted the dome structures in shades of orange and gold. Children ran through the streets on their way to school. Farmers checked their crops in the hydroponics bay. Everything felt normal. Everything felt safe. Governor Jiho stood at his office window and watched the colony wake up. He was 53 years old now, with gray hair at his temples and worry lines around his eyes. He had spent half his life building this place. 50,000 people called New Haven home. They trusted him to keep them safe. His desk terminal beeped. An incoming message from the orbital station. "Governor, we have visitors," the voice said. 3 ships just dropped out of faster-than-light travel. They're Velkari. Jiho felt his stomach tighten. The Velkari Empire had been expanding through this sector for the past 5 years. Every species they met either joined them or disappeared. Nobody talked about what happened to the ones who disappeared. "Send a greeting," Jiho said. "Standard diplomatic protocol." He pressed the button for internal communications. "Minji, please come to my office." 2 minutes later, his security chief walked through the door. Minji was 38, sharp-eyed, and never missed anything. She had been a military officer before coming to New Haven. She still moved like a soldier. "The Velkari are here," Jiho said. Minji's face went hard. "How many ships?" 3. That's not a trade delegation. That's a battle group. "They haven't shown hostile intent," Jiho said. "We have to give them a chance." "We should evacuate the children first," Minji said. "Just in case. If we do that, we'll insult them before they even land. It could start a war." Minji crossed her arms. "Governor, I've read the reports. 15 colonies in the last 2 years, gone, no survivors. No wreckage, just gone. And the Velkari were in that sector every time." "Those are rumors," Jiho said, but his voice lacked confidence. "I want our defense grid online," Minji said. "All weapons charged." "No, we're not going to provoke them." They stared at each other for a long moment. Finally, Minji nodded. "I'll prepare a security detail for the meeting, but I'm running full scans of their ships." 3 hours later, the Velkari shuttle landed in the main plaza. A crowd gathered to watch. Humans were curious by nature. First contact with the new species was exciting. The shuttle door opened. Ambassador Thexelon stepped out. The Velkari looked like someone had mixed a spider with a wolf and given it armor plating. 8 legs, 4 arms, and eyes that reflected light like mirrors. Thexelon was 3 meters tall and moved with predatory grace. Jiho walked forward with his diplomatic smile in place. He had practiced this smile for years. It said, "We are friends. We want peace and welcome to New Haven," Jiho said. "We're honored by your visit." Thexelon's translator device turned his clicking sounds into words. "Your colony is impressive for such a young species. You have built much in a short time. Thank you. We hope to build relationships with all our neighbors." "Relationships require understanding," Thexelon said. "We should talk privately." The meeting lasted 4 hours. Jiho came out looking tired. Minji was waiting for him outside the conference room. "Well?" she asked. "They want to establish a trade route through our system," Jiho said. "They're offering technology in exchange for mining rights on our outer planets. Did you agree?" "I said we would consider it." "They're staying for 3 days to tour the colony." Minji pulled him aside, away from the others. "Governor, my weapons scan showed something. Those ships are carrying enough firepower to glass this entire planet. This isn't a trade delegation. Maybe they're just cautious. We don't know their culture." "I know predators when I see them," Minji said. Down in the engineering section, Hyun was working on the new terraforming reactor. He was 42 with strong hands and a quick mind. His 2 children were in school right now. His wife was teaching a class on Earth history. Life was good. His communicator buzzed. It was his friend Do-hyun. "Did you see the aliens?" Do-hyun asked. He was a shuttle pilot, always excited about anything that flew. "I saw them on the news feed," Hyun said. "They look scary. Governor Jiho seems comfortable with them." He gave them a full tour. "Jiho would be comfortable with a volcano if it would help the colony," Hyun said, laughing. In the xenobiology lab, Sora was studying samples from the local ecosystem when her assistant ran in. "Doctor, you should see this. I accessed the Velkari biological database through the diplomatic exchange." Sora looked at the screen. Her face went pale. "This can't be right," she said. "I've checked it 3 times. The Velkari don't do trade. They don't do diplomacy. They're an invasion species. They scout targets, evaluate threats, and then they attack. We need to tell the governor." He won't listen. He wants to believe in peace. Sora saved the data to a secure drive. Then we make sure someone listens. The 3 days passed quickly. The Velkari delegation toured the schools, the farms, the factories. They asked questions about population, military capacity, and resource production. Ambassador Thexlon smiled with too many teeth. On the 3rd day, they left. Their ships lifted off and jumped back into faster-than-light travel. Jiho stood in the plaza and watched them go. He felt relieved. The meeting had gone well. No conflict. No threats. Maybe the rumors about the Velkari were wrong. Maybe peace was possible. Minji stood beside him. She didn't feel relieved. She felt like prey being watched by a hunter. Something's wrong, she said. The meeting went perfectly, Jiho said. That's what's wrong. They got everything they wanted. They know our defenses. They know our population. They know exactly how long it would take us to evacuate. You're being paranoid. I'm being smart. Governor, please, let me start evacuation protocols. Just as a precaution. Jiho shook his head. We're not going to live in fear. New Haven is a symbol of humanity's future. We came to the stars to build something better. That means trusting others. It also means protecting our people. I am protecting them by choosing peace. That night, Hyun read his children a bedtime story. Do-hyun flew a supply run to the orbital station. Sora worked late in her lab, still trying to convince someone to look at her data. Minji sat in her office and watched the sensor feeds, waiting for something she hoped would never come. 3 days later, the sensors detected ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. Not 3 ships this time. 30. Minji's communicator buzzed at 4 in the morning. She was already awake. She had been awake for 3 days. Governor, she said into the comm. They're back. How many ships? 30. And they're powering weapons. There was silence on the line. Then Jiho's voice came back, and it was different. All the hope was gone from it. Sound the evacuation alarm, he said. Get as many people out as you can. Yes, sir. Minji ran through the corridors, shouting orders. Alarms screamed. People poured out of their homes in confusion and fear. In the sky above New Haven, the Velkari fleet moved into position. They weren't here to talk anymore. They were here to show the galaxy what happened to young species who built colonies in Velkari space. The first bombardment struck at 4:15 in the morning. New Haven began to burn. The first plasma bolt hit the central school building. Hyun was already running toward it. His children were inside. His wife was teaching on the 3rd floor. The explosion threw him backward. Heat washed over him like standing too close to the sun. When he opened his eyes, the building was gone, just gone. Where 300 children had been sleeping, there was now a crater of melting metal and burning concrete. No, he whispered. Then he was screaming. No! Other parents ran toward the ruins. The heat drove them back. Nothing could have survived that blast, nothing. Hyun fell to his knees. His family was dead. Everyone he loved was dead. And in the sky, more plasma bolts were falling. Across the colony, Do-hyun was at the shuttle port when the attack began. He had been loading supplies for a morning run. Now he was loading people. Get in. Move, move, he shouted. Families ran toward his shuttle. Parents carrying children. Old people struggling to run. Everyone was screaming. A plasma bolt hit the medical center 200 meters away. The shockwave knocked people off their feet. Do-hyun grabbed a small girl who had fallen and threw her into the shuttle. How many can you fit? A woman shouted at him. 50, maybe 60. There are thousands here. I know, get in or get out of the way. He sealed the cargo door when the shuttle was packed beyond safety limits. Bodies pressed against each other. Children crying. Adults praying. Do-hyun ran to the cockpit and fired the engines. The shuttle lifted off just as another plasma bolt destroyed the landing pad where he had been standing 3 seconds ago. Through the cockpit window, he could see the colony dying. The hospital was burning. The residential domes were collapsing. The Velkari ships weren't hitting military targets. They were hitting schools, homes, the places where people lived and loved and raised families. This isn't war, Do-hyun said to himself. This is murder, his communicator crackled. Other pilots were calling out positions. Some made it off the ground. Most didn't. The Velkari were targeting the shuttle ports first. They didn't want anyone escaping. Do-hyun pushed his shuttle toward orbit. The engines screamed. Behind him, 57 people held on to whatever they could find. A Velkari fighter noticed him. It turned and accelerated. No, 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 Do-hyun muttered. His shuttle wasn't armed. It wasn't built for combat. It was built for carrying grain and machine parts. The fighter lined up a shot. Do-hyun cut his main engine and fired lateral thrusters. The shuttle spun sideways. The plasma blast missed by 10 meters. He fired the main engine again. The shuttle jolted forward. People in the cargo bay were thrown around like toys. He heard screaming over the internal comm. "Hold on," he shouted. "Just hold on!" The fighter was turning for another pass. But Do-hyun was closer to orbit now. If he could just make it to the faster-than-light jump point, they might survive. Behind him, another shuttle exploded. Then another. The sky was full of debris and fire. Down on the surface, Minji was in the security center. Screens showed the colony burning. Each screen showed a new horror. She had trained for enemy attacks. She had planned defenses. But she had never imagined this. "All defense batteries fire at will," she said into the comm. "Ma'am, we can't get a lock. They're jamming our targeting systems. Then fire manually. Aim by eye. Do something." The defense turrets fired. Most missed. A few shots hit Velkari shields and bounced off harmlessly. The Velkari didn't even bother firing back at the defense grid. They were too busy killing civilians. "Governor Jiho is calling," someone said. Minji switched channels. "Governor?" "Minji, I'm in the command bunker. The blast doors are sealed. There are 200 people here with me. Stay there. The bunker can withstand the bombardment." "How many shuttles made it out?" Minji looked at her screens. 4, maybe 5. Out of 30, there was silence. Then Jiho spoke again, and his voice was breaking. "I was wrong. You tried to warn me. I didn't listen. Sir, this isn't the time. They're broadcasting a message. They want the whole galaxy to see this. They're making an example of us. Then we need to make sure someone survives to tell our side." "You're not on the planet," Jiho said. Minji felt cold. "What?" "I checked the security logs. You were off-world when the attack began. You're on the orbital station." She had been. She had gone up to personally check the sensor systems because she didn't trust the automated scans. If she had been on the surface, she would be dead now. "I need you to do something for me," Jiho said. "Record everything. Make sure Earth sees what happened here. Make sure they know the Velkari gave us no choice. No warning. They just killed us, Governor. And Minji, make them pay. Make the Velkari pay for every single person who died today." The transmission cut out. 5 seconds later, the command bunker took a direct hit from a plasma bombardment. 200 people, including Governor Jiho, were vaporized instantly. Minji stood alone in the observation deck of the orbital station. She watched her home burn. She watched the place where she had spent 10 years of her life turn into a graveyard. Her husband was down there. Her 2 children. Her friends. Her life all gone. In the xenobiology lab, Sora had been working when the attack began. She ran for the exit. The ceiling collapsed. Metal and concrete pinned her legs. She couldn't move. Fire spread through the building. She could feel the heat getting closer. This was how she was going to die. Burned alive in her own lab while her research burned around her. She thought about her parents on Earth. They would get a message saying she was gone. They would never know what really happened. They would never know that she had tried to warn everyone. The smoke got thicker. She couldn't breathe. Her vision went dark. Above the planet, Do-hyun's shuttle finally cleared the gravity well. He plotted a jump to the nearest human outpost. The faster-than-light drive was charging. 30 seconds until jump. He looked back at the planet one more time. New Haven was burning. From orbit, it looked like someone had taken a blowtorch to a painting. All the beautiful domes and towers were melting into slag. "Why?" someone asked behind him. A young girl, maybe 10 years old. "Why did they do this?" Do-hyun didn't have an answer. How do you explain evil to a child? How do you explain that some species kill simply because they can? "I don't know," he said. The faster-than-light drive activated. The stars stretched. New Haven disappeared behind them. Do-hyun counted the survivors in his cargo bay. 57 souls, out of 50,000. 3 other shuttles made it to the rendezvous point. 160 more survivors. They transferred everyone to Do-hyun's shuttle because it had the longest range drive. "What do we do now?" another pilot asked. "We go to Earth," Do-hyun said. "We tell them what happened. We show them the footage, and then what? Then we make sure this never happens again." The journey to Earth took 2 weeks. For 2 weeks, the survivors lived in cramped cargo holds. They had nightmares. They cried. Some stopped talking entirely. The children asked questions nobody could answer. When they finally arrived at Earth, military ships surrounded them immediately. Earth had heard about the attack, but they didn't know the details. They didn't know how bad it was. Do-Yun transmitted the footage. Hours of video recorded by security cameras, satellites, and personal devices. Everything was in the planetary database, and it uploaded before the power grid failed. The United Earth Assembly watched in silence. They saw the schools exploding. They saw parents dying while trying to protect their children. They saw a peaceful colony turned into ashes in less than 6 hours, and they heard the Valkyrie broadcast. The message that played on every frequency while New Haven burned. Humanity has been classified as a competing species in Valkyrie territory. New Haven is the first example. 17 more colonies will be eliminated in the next cycle. Submit to Valkyrie Authority or face extinction. The assembly chamber was silent when the footage ended. Some representatives were crying. Others sat with expressions of shock. A few looked angry enough to start a war right there. Minji stood before them. She had lost everything. Her face showed it. Her eyes were empty of everything except purpose. "They're going to kill us all," she said. Her voice was flat, dead. "Unless we stop them first. Whatever it takes, whatever it costs. We stop them." The assembly erupted into shouting. Some wanted war. Some wanted to evacuate all colonies. Some wanted to surrender and hope for mercy. But Minji knew the truth. The Valkyrie didn't do mercy. They did extinction. The United Earth Assembly met for 3 days straight. No breaks, no rest. The representatives watched the footage from New Haven over and over until everyone had memorized the screams. Ambassador Yuna stood at her podium on the first day. She was 60 years old and had spent her entire career building bridges between species. She believed in peace. She believed in diplomacy. But even she couldn't find words to defend what the Valkyrie had done. "We must respond," she said. "But we must respond with wisdom. If we become monsters to fight monsters, we lose what makes us human." General Junho took the podium next. He was a career military officer with 40 years of experience. He had fought in 3 wars. He knew what violence cost. "The ambassador is right about one thing," he said. "We must respond. But wisdom won't save our colonies. The Valkyrie told us exactly what they plan to do. Kill 17 more colonies. That's 850,000 people. Our people. We have 30 days before they hit the next target." "What do you propose?" someone asked. "We fortify every colony. We move the fleet into defensive positions. We prepare for a long war." "Defensive war?" Admiral Taeyang stood up without waiting to be recognized. He was younger than Junho, only 50, but his eyes were hard. "They just killed 50,000 civilians. They broadcast their plans to kill 850,000 more. And you want to play defense?" "What would you have us do?" Junho asked. "I want to make sure they never do this again. To anyone. Ever." The chamber went quiet. Everyone knew Admiral Taeyang's reputation. He was brilliant. He was ruthless. And he had been working on theoretical warfare projects that most people didn't want to think about. "Explain," the assembly president said. Taeyang walked to the center of the chamber. He pulled up a holographic display. 30 years ago, during the resource wars, Earth scientists developed weapons that were so dangerous we banned them. Not because they didn't work, because they worked too well. We called them extinction-level weapons. We locked them away and promised to never use them. "Where is this going?" Yuna asked. "I want to unlock them. I want to show the Valkyrie what happens when you push humanity past the breaking point." The chamber erupted. Half the representatives were on their feet shouting. Some were shouting in agreement. Some were shouting in horror. "You're talking about weapons that violate every treaty we've ever signed," Yuna said. "The Valkyrie violated the only treaty that matters," Taeyang said. "The treaty that says you don't massacre civilians. They broke that rule, so we break ours." "This is insane," someone shouted. "No." Minji's voice cut through the noise. She had been sitting quietly in the survivor section. Now she stood. Every eye in the chamber turned to her. "This is survival," she said. She walked down to the chamber floor. "I watched my home burn. I watched 50,000 people die because we chose peace. Because we believed the Velkari would honor the rules of civilization. They won't. They don't care about treaties or morality or mercy. They only understand strength. And you think becoming like them is strength? Yuna asked. I think making sure they can never do this again is strength. I think protecting the 850,000 people in our other colonies is strength. What's your plan, Ambassador? Write them a strongly worded letter? The chamber went silent. Yuna's face was pale, but she didn't back down. If we use these weapons, we become the very thing we're fighting against. No, Minji said. We become the thing that stops the fight. Forever. The president called for order. Admiral Taiyang, present your proposal. Complete details will vote in 72 hours. Taiyang's proposal had a name. Project Terminus. He spent 2 days explaining every detail. The weapons, the delivery systems, the targets, the timeline. Some representatives walked out. They couldn't listen. They couldn't be part of it. Ambassador Yuna stayed. She listened to every word. And then she stood up one final time. I understand why people want this, she said. I understand the rage, the fear, the need to protect our people. But if we do this, we'll never be able to go back. We'll be the species that used weapons even we thought were too terrible to exist. The galaxy will fear us. And maybe that's what you want. But fear isn't respect. Fear is just another kind of hate. She gathered her things. I'm resigning. I won't be part of this, but I won't fight against it either. Because I don't have a better answer, I wish I did. She walked out. 20 other representatives followed her. General Junho stayed. He had been quiet for most of the debate. Now he spoke. I don't like this plan. It violates everything I learned at the military academy. Everything I taught young officers about honor and rules of engagement. But the ambassador is right about one thing. I don't have a better answer either. He looked at Admiral Taiyang. If we do this, we do it completely. No half measures. If we're going to become monsters, we need to be monsters that nobody ever wants to fight again. Agreed, Taiyang said. The vote came on the third day. The chamber was half empty. Some representatives had left with Yuna. Some couldn't bring themselves to vote either way. The president called for the vote. All in favor of authorizing Project Terminus? Hands went up. Slowly at first, then more, then more. All opposed? Fewer hands. But still many. The count took 10 minutes. When it was done, the president's voice was hollow. The motion passes. Project Terminus is authorized. Somewhere in the chamber, someone was crying. Someone else was praying. Most sat in silence and wondered what they had just done. Admiral Taiyang stood. I'll need full military authority. I'll need access to the banned weapons facilities, and I'll need volunteers. You'll have everything you need, the president said. God help us all. Minji approached Taiyang after the session. I want in. Whatever you're planning, I want to be part of it. This isn't going to be clean, Taiyang said. It's not going to be heroic. The history books will call us war criminals. I don't care what the history books say. I care about making sure there isn't another New Haven. Then you're in. Report to Fleet Command tomorrow morning. That night, Earth sent a message to the Velkari Empire. It was broadcast on every channel. Every species in the sector could hear it. You came to New Haven, and you killed 50,000 civilians. You said you would kill 850,000 more. You thought this would make us submit. You were wrong. You wanted to see what humanity becomes when you take away our civilization. You wanted to see what we're capable of when we stop pretending to be civilized. You're about to find out. This is your only warning. Withdraw from all human territories immediately. Release any human prisoners. Leave our space and never return. If you refuse, we will show the galaxy what it means to push humanity too far. The Velkari response came 12 hours later. It was short. Threats from prey are meaningless. The next colony dies in 18 days. Admiral Taiyang read the message and smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had hoped to be wrong and was disappointed to be right. They think we're bluffing, he said. We're not, are we? Minji asked. No, we're not. He pulled up star charts. The Velkari have military outposts scattered through the sector. This one here is their primary operations base, 3,000 soldiers. It's where they coordinate their attacks. We're hitting it? We're erasing it, and we're making sure every species in the galaxy watches. Minji looked at the plan, really looked at it. What Taiyang was proposing wasn't just an attack. It was a demonstration, a message written in fire and death. When? She asked. 5 days. That gives us time to get the weapons out of storage and load them onto ships. It also gives the Velkari time to think we're still deciding what to do. Let them think we're weak. Let them think we're afraid. And then we show them what humanity does to species that commit genocide. The next 5 days were chaos. Ships were pulled from civilian service and converted to military use. Scientists who had been retired for decades were brought back to work on weapons they had sworn never to build again. Soldiers volunteered by the thousands. Do-hyun found himself recruited as a pilot. His shuttle flying experience made him valuable. They put him through a crash course in military tactics. You sure about this? His instructor asked. You're a civilian. You don't have to do this. Do-hyun thought about the children he had saved. He thought about the children he hadn't. Yes, I'm sure. On the 5th day, a fleet of 20 ships left Earth orbit. They jumped to faster than light and disappeared. Their destination was the Velkari military outpost at Kepler 62. Their mission was to deliver Project Terminus. Their orders were simple. Leave nothing alive. Back on Earth, the assembly gathered to watch. This time, there was no debate, no discussion. They sat in silence and waited to see what humanity had become. Ambassador Yuna watched from her home. She had resigned, but she couldn't look away. She needed to see if her fears were justified. General Junho stood in the military command center. He had authorized the mission, but part of him still hoped it would fail, that something would stop this before it went too far. Admiral Taiyang sat in the fleet command chair. He felt nothing, no guilt, no satisfaction, just cold certainty that this was necessary. And Minji stood on the bridge of the lead ship. She looked at the stars and thought about her husband, her children, Governor Jiho, all the people who had died believing that peace was possible. They were wrong, she said quietly. Peace isn't possible with monsters. Only extinction is. The fleet dropped out of faster than the Velkari outpost at Kepler 62 was a massive structure. It orbited a dead planet and housed 3,000 soldiers. From here, the Velkari coordinated their attacks across 6 sectors. This was where they had planned the New Haven massacre. This was where they had celebrated its success. Commander Krixva sat in the command center watching the sensor displays. 3 unknown ships had just appeared at the edge of the system. Human ships based on the engine signatures. Finally, Krixva said, the prey comes to fight back. His officers laughed. The outpost had shields strong enough to withstand a supernova. It had weapons that could destroy a fleet. 3 small human ships were no threat. Shall we destroy them, Commander? His weapons officer asked. No, capture them. I want to interrogate the survivors. Let them tell us which colony to hit next. The human ships didn't fire weapons. They didn't activate shields. They just drifted closer, engines cold like debris floating through space. Something is wrong, the sensor officer said. I'm reading strange energy signatures from those ships. What kind of energy? I don't know. I've never seen anything like it. Krixva felt the first hint of concern. Raise shields. Charge weapons. But it was too late. The 3 human ships opened their cargo bays. Something silver and black poured out, millions of tiny objects, each one smaller than a grain of sand. They spread through space like a cloud. Like smoke. Like death. What is that? Someone asked. The cloud reached the outpost shields. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the shields started to dissolve. Not break, not overload, dissolve. The energy fields turned to dust and drifted away. Shields are down, the sensor officer shouted. How are shields down? The silver cloud touched the hull of the outpost. Metal began to change. Steel turned gray. Then it turned to powder. Then it turned to nothing. Krixva watched in horror as the walls of his command center started to vanish. The viewport cracked. Air began to rush out. Emergency alarms screamed through the station. Seal the bulkheads, he ordered. The bulkheads dissolved before they could close. "What is this?" his second officer asked. His voice was rising toward panic. "It's eating the station," Krixva said. He had seen many weapons in his long military career. He had never seen anything like this. "It's eating everything." The cloud spread through the entire outpost in minutes. It touched walls and they turned to dust. It touched weapons and they stopped existing. It touched life support systems and they failed. And then it touched the soldiers. Krixva felt it on his skin first. A tingling sensation, then burning, then his hands started to turn gray. He watched his own flesh dissolve, watched it turn to powder and drift away in the escaping atmosphere. He tried to scream, but his throat was already gone. 3,000 Velkari soldiers died over the next 6 hours. Every death was recorded. Every scream was captured. The human ships broadcast it all on every frequency. They wanted the galaxy to watch. They wanted everyone to see what happened when you pushed humanity too far. The outpost that had stood for 50 years was gone in half a day. Where there had been a massive military installation, there was now only dust spreading slowly through the vacuum of space. On Earth, the assembly watched in silence. Some people covered their mouths. Some turned away. Some watched with grim satisfaction. Ambassador Yuna sat in her home and wept. Not for the Velkari. For humanity. For what they had become. Admiral Taeyang watched the data feeds with cold analysis. The Cascade virus performed exactly as predicted. Total conversion in 6.3 hours, broadcasting the results now to all known species. The message went out across the galaxy. This was Phase 1. The Velkari attacked our colony. We responded to one military target. If they attack another civilian target, Phase 2 begins, and Phase 2 is much worse. The Velkari High Command received the message and immediately launched attacks on 2 more human colonies. They hit Horizon Station and New Beijing within hours of each other. 5,000 more civilians died. "They think we're bluffing," Minji said. She stood on the bridge of the fleet command ship. The news of the new attacks had just arrived. "They think we won't escalate. Then we show them they're wrong," Admiral Taeyang said. He activated Phase 2. Phase 2 wasn't about destroying military targets. It was about terror. Pure, calculated terror. Human ships jumped into Velkari territory and dropped packages into the gravity wells of 17 Velkari colony worlds. The packages were artificial comets, tiny things no bigger than a car. They would take 50 years to complete their fall into each planet's atmosphere, but each comet was seeded with the Cascade virus. In 50 years, when they finally hit the atmosphere, they would begin converting the entire planet to dust. Every city, every person, every piece of Velkari civilization, all of it would slowly dissolve over the course of a decade. The kicker? The comets couldn't be stopped. They were too small to target with weapons. They were on unpredictable trajectories that changed constantly. The Velkari could spend the next 50 years trying to intercept them all. They would need to catch every single one. If even one comet made it through, an entire world would die. Humanity broadcast the orbital data publicly. Every trajectory, every target, every countdown timer. "You have 50 years, the message said. 50 years to live under the shadow of extinction. To know that your children and grandchildren will inherit a death sentence, unless you withdraw from all human space, unless you release all human prisoners, unless you end this war right now." The Velkari homeworld erupted into chaos. Civilians watched the countdown timers and panicked. How could they live normal lives knowing that in 50 years their world would end? How could they have children? How could they plan futures? The Velkari government tried to calm the population. They announced massive programs to intercept the comets. They built thousands of defense platforms. They assigned entire fleets to comet defense. But there were too many comets, too many trajectories, and new ones kept appearing. Every time the Velkari attacked another human target, more comets arrived. Within 3 months, the Velkari economy collapsed. Nobody wanted to invest in a civilization that might not exist in 50 years. Trade partners withdrew. Ally species distanced themselves. The mighty Velkari Empire was eating itself from the inside. But that wasn't enough for Admiral Taeyang. He had planned for Phase 3. "They need to understand that even if they stop now, we can still destroy them," he explained to his staff. "They need to understand that we own their future." Phase 3 required boots on the ground. It required soldiers willing to infiltrate the most heavily defended planet in the Velkari Empire. and plant a device that should never have been invented. Minji volunteered to lead the team. "I want to look them in the eye," she said. "I want them to know who did this." The infiltration took 2 months of planning. Minji and her team used captured Velkari ships. They wore Velkari biosuits that masked their human biology. They spoke Velkari language through translation implants. They landed on the Velkari homeworld and made their way to the planet's mantle access point. It was a mining facility that reached down through the crust. Perfect for what they needed to do. Minji carried the device herself. It was small, about the size of a briefcase. Inside was a quantum detonator linked by faster-than-light communication to a dead man's switch on Earth. The switch monitored human vital signs. All human vital signs. Every person in every colony. If the human population ever dropped below a critical threshold, if genocide was ever attempted against humanity again, the device would activate. And when it activated, it would cause a quantum cascade reaction in the core of the Velkari homeworld. The planet would simply cease to exist. No explosion, no warning. It would be there one moment and gone the next. 17 other teams planted 17 other devices on 17 other Velkari worlds. Worlds where millions of civilians lived. Worlds with children and families and people who had nothing to do with the New Haven massacre. Minji stood in the deep mine shaft and placed the device against the rock face. It bonded molecularly with the planet's mantle. It couldn't be removed without triggering it. It couldn't be detected by normal sensors. It was invisible and permanent. She thought about her children, about how she had failed to protect them, about how she was now protecting millions of other children by threatening millions of Velkari children. "I'm a monster now," she said quietly. "We all are," one of her team members replied. "But we're monsters who protect our own." They escaped the planet and returned to Earth. The message went out immediately. "We have placed quantum detonators in the cores of 18 Velkari worlds. They are linked to human survival. If humanity is ever brought to the edge of extinction, these worlds will be destroyed instantly. No warning, no negotiation, just annihilation. You wanted to make us submit through fear. Now you understand what real fear means. You will live forever knowing that your survival depends on ours. You will never threaten us again, because threatening us means guaranteeing your own destruction." The Velkari High Command met in emergency session. Their military leaders argued for finding and disabling the devices. Their scientists said it was impossible. The quantum signatures were untraceable. The devices were bonded at the molecular level. We could try to ED. The Interstellar Council met 3 months after the Velkari surrender. 47 species sent representatives to the massive station that orbited neutral space. The Council had existed for 800 years. It had seen wars. It had seen peace. It had never seen anything like what humanity had done. The Council chamber was built like an arena. Representatives sat in ascending circles around a central platform. Today, that platform was reserved for humanity. Ambassador Yuna stood there alone. She had resigned from Earth's government, but the Council had specifically requested her presence. They wanted to hear from someone who had opposed Project Terminus, someone who might help them understand. The Council chair was a Matharan named Sulix. His species looked like living crystals, and his voice rang like bells when he spoke. "Ambassador Yuna, humanity stands accused of crimes against civilization itself. You deployed weapons that dissolve matter at the molecular level. You planted extinction devices on civilian worlds. You have terrorized an entire species into submission. How do you answer these charges?" Yuna stood silent for a long moment. Finally, she spoke. "I can't answer them. I oppose these actions. I resigned rather than be part of them. But I also can't condemn them, because none of you offered an alternative." The chamber erupted. Representatives from dozens of species shouted at once. Sulix rang his crystal hands together, producing a sound that silenced everyone. "Explain yourself," he said to Yuna. "The Velkari came to our colony. They killed 50,000 civilians. They broadcast their intention to kill 850,000 more. And what did this council do?" She looked around the chamber. Nothing. Not one species offered military aid. Not one species voted to sanction the Velkari. You watched our people die and you did nothing. "The Velkari were powerful," someone said. "Opposing them would have meant war." "Exactly," Yuna said. "You were afraid, so you let them kill us. And now you're horrified that we defended ourselves effectively. You're not upset about what we did. You're upset that we had the capability to do it. A representative from the Xyloth Collective stood up. His species looked like massive insects with translucent wings. You threatened to destroy entire worlds. Billions of innocent civilians. So did the Velkari, Yuna said. Where was your outrage when they announced their intention to destroy 17 human colonies? I'll tell you where it was. It was silent, quiet, invisible. Because you weren't the targets. Admiral Taeyang entered the chamber. He hadn't been invited, but nobody stopped him. He walked to the central platform and stood beside Yuna. The ambassador is too kind, he said. She's trying to make you understand our position. I'm not going to bother. You want to condemn us? Fine. You want to sanction us? Try it. But understand this, we don't need your approval. We don't need your friendship. All we need is for you to understand that humanity will never again be a victim. You've become the very threat you claim to oppose. The Xyloth representative shouted. No. General Junho entered the chamber as well. We've become a threat to threats. There's a difference. The Velkari attacked civilian targets. We responded by targeting military installations and then giving them every chance to surrender. They chose to escalate. We matched them step for step. That's not the same as what they did. You planted bombs on civilian worlds after they bombed our civilian worlds. And our bombs have a condition. Don't genocide humans. That's it. That's the only thing they have to do to stay safe. Is that really so unreasonable? Sulix rang for silence again. General Junho, the Council acknowledges that humanity was provoked. But your response has created a dangerous precedent. Other species may now feel justified in developing similar weapons. The galaxy could descend into an arms race that destroys us all. That's your problem, Taeyang said. Not ours. We tried peace. We tried diplomacy. 50,000 people died because we believed in the system you claim to uphold. Never again. The Council debated for 3 days. Behind closed doors, away from public feeds. The real conversations happened. Many species were genuinely horrified by humanity's actions. But many others were quietly impressed. The Velkari had been a problem for everyone. They had destroyed countless civilizations. And nobody had been able to stop them until humanity did. A delegation of smaller species approached General Junho privately. They represented worlds that lived in fear of larger aggressive neighbors. How much would it cost to buy human protection? Their spokesperson asked. We're not mercenaries, Junho said. We're not asking you to fight our wars. We're asking you to make it clear that attacking us means attacking humanity. We'll pay. We'll provide resources. We just want to know we're not alone. Junho reported this conversation to Earth Command. The discussion that followed was intense. Humanity could become the galaxy's protector, or the galaxy's tyrant. The line between those roles was very thin. On the 4th day, the Council reached a decision. Sulix read it aloud in the chamber. The Interstellar Council officially condemns humanity's use of planet-destroying weapons and its threats against civilian populations. However, the Council acknowledges that the Velkari Empire initiated aggression against human civilians without provocation. Therefore, humanity will face the following consequences. First, all planet-killing weapons must be registered with the Council. Second, humanity will be placed on probationary status for 50 years. Third, humanity is invited to join the Council as a permanent member with full voting rights. The chamber went silent. Then chaos erupted. You're rewarding them, someone shouted. You're legitimizing terror, another voice called out. Sulix rang for silence. The Council recognizes reality. Humanity has proven it possesses both the capability and the will to defend itself by any means necessary. We can either work with them or against them. Working with them seems wiser. Furthermore, humanity has revealed a gap in galactic law. There is no effective mechanism to prevent genocide. Humanity created their own mechanism. Perhaps we should have created one first. Minji watched this from the observation gallery. She felt nothing. No satisfaction. No vindication. Just emptiness. Do-hyun sat beside her. The New Haven orphans were back on Earth, being raised by families who volunteered to adopt them. He had delivered them to safety. He had done his duty. But he couldn't stop thinking about the Velkari children living on worlds with quantum bombs in their cores. Did we do the right thing? He asked. I don't know, Minji said. I don't think there was a right thing. There was survival and there was extinction. We chose survival. At what cost? Everything, Minji said. We're alive. But we're different now. The old humanity, the one that went to the stars with hope and optimism, that humanity died at New Haven. What we are now, I don't have a word for it. Ambassador Yuna gave one final speech before leaving the council station. I opposed Project Terminus because I believed it would change us. I was right. We're changed, maybe forever. But I need you all to understand something. When the Velkari came to New Haven, they didn't attack our military. They didn't target our defenses. They killed children in schools. They vaporized hospitals. They made our civilians watch their families burn. And you did nothing. The galaxy did nothing. So we did something. If that makes us monsters, then we're monsters you created. She left the chamber. She never returned to galactic politics. On Earth, the celebrations were muted. Yes, the war was over. Yes, the colonies were safe. But nobody felt like celebrating. They had won by becoming something terrible. The New Haven Memorial was completed during this time. It was built on Earth rather than on the ruins of the colony. A massive black obelisk that reached into the sky. The inscription was simple: "Civilization ends here." People debated what it meant. Some said it marked where civilized humanity died. Some said it marked where humanity's patience for civilized rules ended. Some said it was a warning to the galaxy. All of them were right. Hyun's children were memorialized on that obelisk, along with 49,999 other names. Each one a person who had lived and loved and died because they believed in peace. The galaxy learned quickly. No species attacked human colonies after that. Some out of respect, most out of fear. Humanity became known as the species that would do anything to protect its own. Absolutely anything. Trade continued. Diplomacy continued. But it was all done carefully, with everyone understanding that humanity had a line that could not be crossed. And if you crossed it, civilization's rules no longer applied. The Velkari Empire never recovered. It fractured into dozens of smaller nations. Some of them even began trading with humanity. Carefully, respectfully, with profound understanding of what humanity could do if provoked. The comet weapons remained in orbit around their worlds. Humanity never removed them. 50 years of waiting, 50 years of fear. It was meant to teach a lesson that would last generations. General Junho retired 2 years after the war ended. He wrote a memoir that became controversial. In it, he said, "We did what we had to do. History will judge whether it was right." I can live with that uncertainty. What I couldn't live with was letting 850,000 more people die while we debated morality. Admiral Taeyang never retired. He remained in command of Earth's Strategic Defense Force. When asked in an interview if he had regrets, his answer was simple: